Right, well, I think we'll kick off. So welcome everybody to this career kickstart webinar that we're going to have this afternoon. I'm really excited about some of the things we're going to be talking about today. It's all part of the career kickstart month that we've been having through September for anybody who's going through career transition or looking to do something different with their career, maybe starting something new. And we know that you can have a lot of worries and anxieties and questions around that time. So we've been trying to address some of those throughout the month, and we're finishing off the month with this webinar today, and we're focusing specifically on confidence. And I'm delighted that I have got two wonderful humans who are going to be helping me today with this and engaging in our conversation. So I'm just going to introduce them quickly to you. So we've got Nicole. I'm so sorry, I've just realised I put A on the end of your name.
Yes.
I am
used to that, don't worry.
I'm sorry. So Nicole Greenfield-Smith, she is a confidence and communication and behavioural coach who helps women in business move out of their own way and create the impact and the income that they deserve. And then we have Kerry with us as well. Kerry Tottingham runs Brilliant Thing. It's a coaching and design thinking practice working with charities to connect strategy and culture and develop purposeful, valuable teams that produce brilliant results. And then there's myself. So I am Kelly Worley. I'm the co-founder of Find Your Wings, a mentor and coach for people going through career transition. I've got 20 years business experience and a passion for really helping people to find their path into a healthy career. And I welcome everybody who is going to be watching this today and joining us. So we've got three areas that we want to touch on. We're going to be about half an hour. So we're going to kick off and make sure that we have enough time for everything. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is workplace confidence. So what we're going to be looking at is how can your workplace impact your confidence? If we're looking at low confidence, it can mean that people are less engaged, they have low creativity, poor performance, but also how does that affect the wider workplace, and what can you do about it, and what kind of role does culture play in our confidence? So as we have a workplace culture expert with us, it would be a good place to start with her. So Kerry, what are your thoughts on this question?
Thanks, Kelly. So culture is something that we create when we come together to work. So no matter where we're working or who we're working with, we're creating this culture between us. And the culture is everything from the leadership style to how we organize our day, the schedules that we have. It's to do with the physical environment, so it's right down to the furnishings, but it's also to do with our behaviors and our values. So if you think of a group of people in the room, the culture is the stuff that's in between those people, and we can all influence and shape that culture. It's not a static thing. Quite often companies do some work around company culture, and we'll have a sort of paragraph that describes their company culture, but unless there's actions and behaviors and things that we do that back up that culture, that can change and change quite considerably. And that's when we end up with companies that have toxic cultures. You might have heard of cultures that aren't welcoming. So if we want to create,
we've all seen those posters on the wall, haven't we, with those big slogans around.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes down to three bullet points or something.
Yeah.
So if we want to create cultures that inspire confidence, we need to think about the people in the room and who they are, what they need, where they come from, how they learn, how they interact with each other, and really tailor our cultures to create the behaviors that we want to see to inspire confidence. So that might be about making people feel really comfortable. It might be about the language that we use. It might be about how we welcome people into the space through our kind of onboarding process, or even just on reception. So there's lots of elements, I think, to company culture that could be tweaked to inspire confidence. And it's often the people that are new to the culture that will understand how that culture impacts on people's confidence. Those people are vital resources of information if we're trying to improve our cultures.
Yeah, and what do you think, if you're an individual and there's an element of the culture that doesn't sit with you or you don't feel comfortable, do you have any advice on how you can, is it something you can address? Do you have a role in that, or do you just have to kind of go and look for another company that you feel a fit better?
Yeah, I think there's something about us all recognizing our own power, and this can come with experience, but also if you're passively accepting something that that doesn't sit right with you or isn't helping you, then you are also part of that culture. That's the thing about culture, you're in it whether you like it or not. And so finding those safe spaces or those safe ways to start a conversation, ask a question, be curious. Often there's things that have happened before you arrived, or there's reasons why things are how they are, and questioning, being curious, asking how things used to be, how things people would like things to be in the future. Those can be really important ways to open up those conversations about culture, and particularly if people have been work or in a team for a long time, they might not recognize some of those behaviors and how they people feel and the kind of actions that they make people take. So I think recognizing your own power to influence your culture and the fact that you are part of it already, and then asking questions to try and shift or understand that a bit better, it can help.
I think that's so important, isn't it? That understanding your own role in everything. So I think it's so easy sometimes to think of the workplace as something that you go to and you perform your action, but not that you actually help create. Because some people don't always feel they've got that power to influence a workplace, when actually you even just being there and participating, you are contributing. And it's not just the hours that you contribute, but the way that you behave in there, and you can change that and adapt that as well to in response to what you were saying to different challenges that you might have. So I think that's really important. Thanks, Kerry. So to Nicole, what are your thoughts around this idea of the workplace and confidence in the workplace?
I think actually, interestingly, culture is a massively underestimated part of how you feel. Oh, I'm echoing. I do apologize. It's a hugely underestimated part of how you feel as an individual. And one of the things that I see time and time again is people entering workplaces, or a workplace changing, for example. They end up with a new boss or a new team, and it has a significant impact on how they feel about themselves. So, for example, say if you're suddenly at the mercy of a toxic manager or someone who micromanages you and doubts every single decision that you make, suddenly that's going to be transferred onto how you feel about yourself. And interestingly, one of the things that I think a lot of us aren't necessarily careful enough about is being very selective about the kinds of cultures that we put ourselves in the first place. It's one of these things when you're looking for jobs or you're trying to up your career, often it feels like a very rational process that I'm ticking the box. I've got this much wage and this is my title. And you go there and yet something deep in your gut says, these aren't necessarily my kind of people, but actually it'll be fine. A lot of the time, those are the things that end up causing serious damage to confidence and how you feel about yourself. So I'd say actually, if you're thinking about places to work and teams to go into and jobs to elevate yourself to, have that in mind. Have that in mind about whether it feels like there's a good cultural fit, whether you feel like you gel, the gut feelings that you have, because actually it's much easier to build confidence than it is to rebuild confidence. When you have to rebuild confidence, it's a different kettle of fish. So those things can have some impact.
Yeah, I would absolutely 100% agree with that. I think when I'm talking to people, talking to my mentees, and this idea of cultural fit comes up, there's always an element of that. What sort of, are they the right people for me? I don't know whether it fits anymore. It wasn't something I thought about when I first took the job, and yet, like you say, it's so fundamental to the way that we perform at work, how much we enjoy work. So important. And yeah, that's a brilliant
Kelly,
point.
Can I just expand on that a little bit? Just in case there's anyone in the, there's obviously kind of power dynamics within the team. So there'll be some kind of hierarchy probably. And so those people that have more responsibility, I think creating a culture or creating an environment where that good fit looks in lots of different ways, because what we don't want is to create cultures where everybody's the same. So we want to bring in that neurodiversity. We want to bring in different backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, as well as the way people have been brought up or the places that they've lived. because those are the kind of things that create really rich cultures and really exciting work, and can really benefit the work. So I think when we're thinking about a cultural fit, hopefully we're looking to places that have that diversity within them as part of that. So I think if those people that do have more responsibility, more power in an organisation, that's a really important point to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on, actually. When you're right that we hadn't raised that until this point, but you're right that cultural fit isn't just getting lots of people who are just like you fit. It's that, you know, taking what everybody can bring and accepting people's contributions from lots of different angles. I really like that. Thank you. So if we're moving on to building confidence, it's actually something that Nicole just finished on when she was talking there. So thinking about building confidence, we all think of people who are confident. We've probably got images in our head of what confidence looks like. We know ourselves when we feel confident, and it can feel very fleeting sometimes, depending on what kind of mood you're in. But one of the things that we were talking about in one of the blogs we did was about the fact that confidence is something that can be built up, and it can be developed, and it can be learned, but also it's something that can move and change all the time. It's not one set thing. And when I was talking to Nicole about this, and we were talking about this idea of pushing your comfort zones all the time, and we hear it a lot, you know, push, make sure you're doing things that scare you, and you know, make sure that you're being challenged all the time. And I'd just like to bring Nicole in on that point as to what your view is on that in relation to how you build confidence.
Oh, I'm going to be a bit controversial here and say I absolutely hate it. I hate it because I've seen the other side of it. And if you're working with people who struggle with imposter syndrome, for example, what you're negating to understand when you're giving out that advice, and I say advice because this is what often happens. I see this all the time in organizations where you'll have, say, a team leader who's confident and exudes that confidence, and everyone looks up to them, and they want everyone else to just be able to do what they can do, and that's great, right? But saying, oh, you know, just feel the fear and do it anyway, can actually be really damaging, and it can have the opposite effect of what you actually want, because at the end of the day, confidence is very fluid, but what it does do is it fundamentally alters your perception of risk. So, for example, if you're a very confident person, you believe in yourself, you've got a strong level of self-worth, then your sense of risk doing something new within the workplace, say, I don't know, you have to give a presentation or something, it's going to feel like, wow, okay, it's not that much of a leap because, you know, I'll do my best and I'll learn from the experience. And if it goes wrong, well, so what? You know, we'll give it a try. If you're right at the other end of the spectrum, it suddenly feels like you have a huge amount to lose. So you do that presentation. Oh my God, what if everyone thinks I'm rubbish? What if I forget what I'm going to say? It potentially might ruin my career. Oh my God, you know, like you're going to have a completely different thought process around exactly the same experience. So the whole pushing yourself outside your comfort zone can be quite damaging, because the truth is it depends on how far you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. If you take a huge leap and for whatever reason it doesn't feel good, then a lot of the work I do is based around psychology and behavior. What that does is it embeds in your long-term memory. So the next time you put yourself in that situation, it feels awful, and it reduces the potential chance of you being able to do that in the way in which you want to do it. So you can end up very quickly in a negative confidence spiral. So from my perspective, it's actually not about taking huge leaps or you know, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's about taking calculated risks. So, okay, right. So what is a small step that maybe doesn't necessarily feel like it's a jump outside my comfort zone, but maybe it's just growing my confidence zone. So I'll keep doing it until it feels okay. And then I'll go a little bit further again the next time. And that generally is a far more impactful strategy than kind of just doing something where it feels like a huge gamble. It's not good for your psychology to be doing that if you're already in a fragile place.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting, and I think it feels a lot more real as well. It feels a lot more achievable to just say, right, well, instead of going to go and do something really, really big, going and doing a presentation. Actually, my first step will be going and talking to my manager about it, or going and, preparing the slides and thinking about the content. And you get there, and then suddenly you're at the presentation stage without really realizing that you've taken that jump. So that really makes a lot of sense. And how does it impact then your ability to deal with rejection or negative scenarios? So one that we've put up here is about interview rejection, that people who are listening to this and are in those kind of stages of career transition might be up against.
So again, it depends on what mindset you're starting off with in the first place. For example, you're very low in your self-confidence and your sense of self-worth, then any rejection is going to really hurt, because it stops being about the thing and it starts being about you. So rather than, okay, that interview didn't go so great and that job wasn't necessarily for me, it becomes, oh my God, I've been rejected. They don't like me. And it's a very subtle difference, but actually it's one that's fundamentally important, because you aren't your behaviors, you're more than the sum of your behaviors and things that happen. And so actually, just learning how to deal with rejection is partly understanding that. It's thinking, what is the opportunity in this situation? Even if this doesn't go my way, what can I learn? What will I do differently next time off the back of it? Because otherwise you end up repeating the same things over and over. And then if you repeat the same things over and over, you tend to get the same results. So yeah, dealing with rejection, the interview scenario is about, right, okay, let's take me out of the equation. Let's look at what actually happened and let's work out what week for next time. And that helps you.
Looking at the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really good tip. And you can be using a lot of things, actually, not just interviews. I think you're right, that idea of removing some of the emotion out of it, which can feel really hard, because when you're really invested in something like an interview, that can be really hard. But that's a really good piece of advice. Kerry, just bringing you in on this one, I think you when we were talking again about this, you had some really interesting thoughts around the role of the team and when you're working in teams, and how your role in a team can be linked to your confidence, your ability to perform.
Yeah, so I totally agree, Nicole, around confidence not being that destination that you get to over there and that big leap. And I'd also say that everybody has confidence, and it's important to find where you have confidence. So it might be that you have a confidence in a particular skill that you bring to a team, or it might be something that you can really trust in yourself. So I can trust myself to be on time, or I can trust myself to be organized, or I can trust myself to really listen to what emotions are behind what people are saying. Whatever those kind of personal qualities that you bring, that you feel that confidence in. And then I think it's about what's going on around that issue. So how can we create more of the conditions to help you feel that confidence? So for example, with the being on time one, I can trust myself to be on time because I've got a regular schedule, or because I've got some, I've set my alarm. So how can we bring some of those techniques that we're using to help you feel confident in that particular thing into other areas of your work? So I think if we can all do that as a team and make space within teams to recognize where people do have confidence and bring their strengths out within the team. So a team that I was working with recently, a sort of hidden quality that we found out that she had, was she was great at making rotas, because she managed her children's rotas at home, and she had a blended family, so different children, different places at different times, and that was a quality that actually she could really bring to work and would really enhance that team. And we had no idea about that until we made space for the conversation to bring out those places where people do feel confident. So I think how we organize our time as a team and making sure that we've got time to understand each other can help us find those things so that everybody can feel confident when they're working together.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, as like we mentioned before, actually, there's a real responsibility on the more senior managers, or maybe business owners as well, to really make sure that this kind of activity and these conversations are allowed to happen, and that they are encouraged to happen, and that people are able to talk in this way, because you'll absolutely get the best out of your people if these kind of conversations are allowed to happen. So I think that's a really good point. Thanks, Kerry. Right, we're going to move on to the last question in the last few minutes, which is all about our self-worth. And this isn't just about, what you believe you can do in your job. There's so much more around self-worth and how it links into confidence. But it's also looking forward into the future. It can actually have a really disproportionate effect on our ability to earn more, to get promotions, to build our own career. So this is something Nicole was talking to me about before, which I thought would be a really interesting sort of element to this, because it's just a very practical side of confidence as well. So Nicole, what was it you were wanting to sort of add on this topic?
So self-worth, obviously, it's not something that you just have. It's a combination of lots of different facets of your life and your experience and how you're raised. But the problem is it will underpin everything that happens in your career. It doesn't matter whether you're employed, it doesn't matter whether you run a business, it impacts everything. Because first up, it sets your expectations. So if, for example, you have a very low sense of self-worth, then what's going to happen is the expectations that you have for yourself are invariably going to be lower as well. And one of the things that I see time and time again is women who are constantly holding back. So you've got potentially big ambitions, you've got things that you desperately want to do. So one of my current clients, for example, she's director, she's had opportunities to go for CEO, and she's held back every single time. And it's not to do with the conditions not being right, it's to do with the fact that she doesn't feel necessarily at that point that she's able to step into that role because she doesn't feel she's worthy. So by default, what will happen is if you're struggling with your confidence, your expectations will be lower, and there'll be that mismatch between your ambitions and your expectations. The other thing that happens is so invariably you will see opportunities as not being relevant for you, or you'll just not see them at all. So one of the great examples that I always see is, and women are really good at doing this, by the way, versus men, women tend to do it more, is you see that job spec and you think, my God, that looks amazing. I absolutely love it. That would be my dream job, but actually I only fulfill 6 out of the 10 criteria. So I'm not going to go for it. Whereas actually someone who is more confident in themselves will think, well, actually, you know what am I going to lose? I'll go for it. If I get an interview, brilliant, it's a fabulous experience. They'll put themselves out there and in that situation in a way that someone that doesn't have that base level of self-worth will do. So what you start seeing very quickly, and you'll know the like show pony versus workhorse analogy within the workplace, that you'll see the show ponies start making waves and they start surging ahead as they go throughout their career, whereas the people who do an awful lot of the work but hang back, there ends up being that big gap between them. So that's one of the things that happens and is a direct result of self-worth. The other thing that tends to happen is you will look for negative evidence to back up your way of thinking about yourself. So if, for example, I think we've all done that, we have your performance review and they tell you 10 things that are amazing, that you've done brilliantly well, and then maybe 1 or 2 things to focus on for next time. And then you go home and your partner says, oh, how was it today? And you go, oh, it was awful. You will focus on those things rather than the things that will make the biggest difference to you, because you will see the evidence that backs up your way of thinking. So if you don't feel enough, you will constantly see evidence to prove to yourself that you are not enough, that you are not worthy, that you're an imposter. So a lot of the time when it comes to working through confidence in the workplace, it's about starting with that very fundamental sense of self-worth that we all have, because at the end of the day, confidence is contagious. If you're confident within your team, that's going to rub off on the people around you. They're going to believe in you more. They're going to feel more empowered themselves. So it literally benefits everyone, but it starts with self-worth. And that's the bit that tends to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's a really good point, so Nicole. I think it's so true about that tendency for us to focus on the negative, definitely. And Kerry, just in the last couple of minutes, just before we wrap up, your thoughts around self-worth is really interesting when we were talking. What were you thinking about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about the difference between self-worth and value. And if we just kind of stretch those 2 things away from each other a little bit, our self-worth being really important, kind of inner state, and the value that we bring to our work being something that hopefully we choose to contribute. And I think it's quite an important distinction, especially when you're getting into those kind of imposter syndrome situations or taking things really personally. Because actually, if we think of the value that we bring to work as something that we're contributing to the work, we're contributing to something outside of ourselves, it means that when that value is criticized or not understood or not appreciated, then it's not an attack on our self-worth, it's an attack on something that we've offered to contribute to something. And then that means that actually we can create that bit of separation that will help us say, well, maybe you don't appreciate that, but that's what I chose to give. And there's that bit of separation. I think it's a little bit healthier than feeling like it's a personal attack on ourselves, and it just helps protect us in those workspaces.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think that's so interesting, that idea of value versus worth. And yeah, it's one of those things that I want to just kind of go away and take away and just kind of sit and think about for a bit, and think about my own value and my own self-worth. Because actually, I think when you first say it, you think, wow, actually, that's really big concepts. I can't just think it off the top of my head. I can't just decide what that is for me. So I think that's a really interesting idea, maybe people to go away and have a little think about, and how that impacts them. So we're almost at the end, actually, which is hopefully good timing for everybody. So I'm just going to offer both Kerry and Nicole just a minute just to say a little bit about their own businesses, because they're both very successful, inspiring women in their own right. And I just wanted to give them another 30 seconds to talk about what they're doing. So Nicole, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I head up the Confidence Craft. So I work with a specific ambition, which is to help women in business to put themselves out there, believe in themselves, and we do that through inner and outer confidence, so that all the mindset stuff, the stuff that underpins it, the self-worth, but also very much what you put out there, so your behavior, your communication, how you connect with people, and then ultimately those two things lead to your strategy, and they help increase your profit. So if anyone actually is interested in all of this, I'm just going to mention that I've got a free festival happening next week with bags of amazing speakers over in my group, which is called Becoming, the Home for Female Founders. So it's over on Facebook, and there are some honestly amazing speakers coming over, just imparting their knowledge and their value, and it's all totally free, so you'd all be incredibly welcome. So hopefully I'll see some of you there.
Thank you, Nicole, that's brilliant. And Kerry, tell us about a brilliant thing.
Well, it's going to be a big week next week because
yeah, it was. I was just thinking that actually. Yeah.
With brilliant things. So I generally work with charities and public sector teams and help them create brilliant work cultures. And we do lots of strategy design. I have a background as an artist, but also working in charities in the NHS. So we bring together strategy and creativity and design workplaces and work cultures that create the outcomes that we would like to achieve. And I have a new program called Cultivate Value coming up, which is connecting those charities with businesses and business partners so that we can kind of draw on the resources and support and the expertise of businesses, but also so that those charities can help those businesses achieve their social responsibility aims. So the very beginning of that is Culture Camp, which is all about how to create a brilliant work culture. And we've got lots of recorded conversations and blog posts and things that will be released throughout the day. So that's next Thursday. So yeah, we can
everybody busy next week.
Yeah, busy week.
Fantastic. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And just a very quick mention, obviously, about Find Your Wings. So I offer the career coaching and mentoring for anybody who's going through those transition periods or who is looking to start a new career. And at the moment, till the end of the month, you can put your name forward for a draw to get a free career consultation with me, and we'll be drawing the results of that on Friday. So thank you so much to Nicole and Kerry for some wonderful conversations today. I really appreciate your time, and we will make this available to as many people as possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.